Since the birth of Lily, things have changed. Mark's face used to light up whenever I entered a room. If I managed to extract a grunt out of him before he buried his nose in his phone again, I'm lucky. Something in him changed the day we brought her home, yet his work is still the same, and may even be less stressful than it was before. Grace, another painting. Is it the third day of the week? Every time he saw me arranging my easel, Mark's voice would cling to the air, sticky and harsh. He once had my greatest painting displayed in his office since he liked my work. No more. I would respond, yeah, so it's not like I'm spending your money, attempting to hide my hand trembling so I could concentrate on blending the blues and yellows on my palette. On the inside, though, every phrase he threw seemed like a blow. I may have been duped, and have a peek at this location. It seems like it was struck by a tornado. He looked around the room, displaying every misplaced blanket and toy as proof of my shortcomings. Look, I'm with Lily all day, and she's a handful. My voice might not be as steady as I would want, but I would fight back. And maybe if you helped a little around here. What do you need help with? You're always at home. You handle it. Remember, that was our agreement. You take care of the rest. I make the money. You can't manage, and it's not my responsibility. There would be no dispute because he would shut me off. Every night ended the same way, with him scoffing and turning away from me. Lily would grab at the hem of my blouse as Daddy went for work, her small eyes bewildered. She would inquire, her little lips trembling at the idea. Daddy mad. No, sweetheart. Daddy is just thinking about a lot of things. Assist Mama with selecting the colors here. I would cradle her in my arms while directing her hand to identify colors and attempting to smile for her. We painted together, and for a time, her laughing at our common color world would overpower the resentment in Mark's voice. I knew my paintings were wonderful because they were all I had left over from a period when I felt energetic and self-assured, not because I was arrogant. When Mark got home that night, I did what I always did. I made an effort to welcome him with a hot meal, a tidy home, and Lily in her finest pajamas, just out of the shower. I said, hey, with the aroma of roast chicken following me. How was your day? In response, he shrugged off his coat and tossed it over the couch with a grunt. His gaze met mine, then shifted to the easel that was positioned in our living room's corner. Still haven't gotten rid of that junk, huh? Mark, it's not garbage. I'm working on something, I said, my fatigue evident. It seems like a waste of money and effort. You know, you might be doing something useful. Without waiting for a response, he moved by me to the refrigerator. Productive seemed to refer to everything that brought him financial gain or eased his burdens. I assumed that neither was to his liking. I said, I am doing something, in a stronger tone. I'm trying to hold on to something that is important to me while parenting our kid and maintaining our house. I care about my art. He opened a beer and took a long gulp without even pausing. Grace, call it what you want. It appears to me that you are creating a mess only to pass the time. I'll need to hire someone to do the cleanup. It wasn't the harshness of the remarks that hurt me. I was growing accustomed to it, but from the rejection of my passion and goals. They no longer had a place in Mark's universe. In what seemed like a weekly performance, I said, dinner's ready, while standing with trembling hands and presenting the dish. My attempt to prepare a hot, filling supper was hardly noticed by Mark's parents, who were sat at the head of the table like judges. The easel at the window was the center of their attention. What's this, then? George, Mark's father, poked a finger at my incomplete painting. He was a big guy with a voice that filled the room. Mark laughed and waved a dismissive hand before settling in. Oh, that's just something Grace has been fooling around with, he said. Real high-class stuff, right? My nerves twitched as laughter erupted, a laugh that missed their eyes. With a voice as keen as steel, Mark's mother, Patricia, said, My, we're an artist now, are we? Why don't you show us your latest masterpiece, dear? George roared, his smile not so much an expression of curiosity as of challenge. I felt the heat creep up my neck as I stood, anchored to the place. It's not done yet, I muttered, but Mark was already striding over to the canvas, grabbing it with less care than he'd take with a dish towel. Look at this, folks, Mark laughed, flipping the canvas around like he was being a white reveal on Wheel of Fortune. It's supposed to be a landscape. Can you believe it? George's laughter bloomed loud again. Looks like a blind dog's nightmare, he said. Patricia tutted, shaking her head, her nostrils flaring with each word. Why waste your time with this hobby? Get a job or do something. Anything productive. As if any place would hire her. Mark snorted, setting the painting back with a thud that made my heart sink. The job market's tough out there, and well, look at her. I swallowed hard, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I do plenty. I take care of Lily in this house. And taking care of your family is the least you can do, Patricia sniffed. But honestly, Mark, if you'd married someone with a little ambition. They went on, tearing strips off me with every word while I just stood there. The room closed in, their words pressing on my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. I felt myself slipping away, becoming smaller, insignificant in this grand performance of theirs. Something in me snapped. As soon as the meal ended, with a fake smile in my voice, I excused myself, marched up the stairs, not looking back, and locked myself in the bedroom. Grace, Mark's voice climbed up the stairs, maybe half an hour later, cracking through the door. You coming back down? We need to clear the table. I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, a scream or a sob would have come out, and I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of hearing my break. I scrolled through my bank app, a frown etching deeper lines on my face. Our account was looking dire again this month, and the grocery list wasn't getting any shorter. Lily needed new shoes, too. She was sprouting like a weed. Mark's voice tumbled in from the living room. Grace, why is there a charge for $48.95 for Martin's art supplies? Just picked up a few things, I said, tapping through the app to transfer what remained of my personal savings to cover it. I needed them. Come on, Grace, that's money we could have put towards something important, isn't it? His voice was flat, bored even, with a hint of something else. Was it disappointment? Frustration? I sighed. Art is important to me, Mark, the same way your golf is important to you. I didn't mention the fact that his golf clubs cost more than a year's worth of my supplies. Yeah, but golf is networking. It's part of my job. What does your painting get us? A cluttered house and wasted cash, he said, grumbling. It gets me through the day, I murmured, feeling that old familiar tug-of-war in my chest. Mark snorted. Through the day, we have to be smart about money, not just spend it on whatever gets us through the day. Budget, Grace. Budget. That word felt like a choke chain. I pay for my art supplies with my own money. Mark, the money I had before I trailed off, not wanting another fight. My before was a long-gone chapter 1 that contained a job, independence, and a once-shared dream of my own gallery. Your money's our money, isn't it? He shot back, the insinuation that my financial independence was history clear in his tone, and that your money is running out fast. What then? Later, at the store, I chose the cheaper brands, counting every cent, every compromise. I bought the smallest tubes of paint, the ones I could slip into the cart without raising eyebrows. Back home, I unpacked the bags with robotic precision, every item a testament to our tightrope, walk above financial ruin. Putting back some luxuries, are we? Mark commented, his gaze landing on the no-name cereal and store-brand pasta. Yes, tightening the belt, I answered without looking at him, hiding the receipts, a paper trail of my crimes. He hummed, rummaging through the bags like an investigator looking for a slip-up. Where are the Greek yogurts you like? And isn't this the cheap coffee? He asked. I shrugged, busying myself with placing a can of tomatoes in the pantry. Prices went up, had to make some cuts. Don't see any cuts in your art budget, though, he said, a cold finger pointing out the new brushes I'd slipped under a loaf of bread. I turned to him, meeting his eyes for the first time since the conversation began. This keeps me sane, Mark. My art keeps me sane. My voice was firm, and I clenched my fist around the countertop to stop the shake in my hand. Well, sanity's quite the luxury item these days, eh? He nodded towards the brushes, his words deliberate, biting. That night, I painted, not out of passion, but frustration. Each stroke was a challenge, a cut from our personal budget to fit it within the constraints of Mark's expectations. But as I worked, I remembered a time when these brushes were a joy to hold, not a weapon I had to defend. Mark was somewhere across the country, tangled up in business trip meetings, when he decided to drop the latest task on me. His voice buzzed through my phone, sounding like he was already out the door before he even finished his sentence. Grace, you got to pull together a birthday present for my boss's wife, Clara. Her big day's in a week. Okay, do you have any cash set aside for that? I asked, squinting at our already tight budget on my laptop screen. Nah, you figure it out. Just make it look like we put some thought into it, he muttered, sounding distracted. Hang on, you want something nice, but I'm supposed to magic up the funds for it. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. You always find a way, make it happen, Grace. And with that cheery little line, he was gone. I let out a long, slow breath, closing my eyes and trying to push back the frustration gnawing at my last nerve. I didn't have the cash, but I needed something that would knock Clara's socks off. No pressure. Right after a deep dive into Clara's online world, it was clear she had a thing for art. Her feed was full of gallery visits, pictures of canvases that probably cost more than our car. She even had photos with artists, talked about supporting the arts, patronage, and all that jazz. An idea sparked, and I grabbed it before it could blaze out of my mind. A painting from me. I had the paints, I had the canvas. I sure as hell had the motive. I'd give Clara something no one else could, not off some high street. I spun the idea in my mind, letting it settle. I could picture the brush strokes already, feel the drag of bristles against canvas. It would be personal, and it would be free. Bonus, a painting. Then decision made. I was going to need every minute of every day if it was going to look anything like the kind of stuff Clara posted. I pulled out my old easel, set it up in the living room, and got to work, all the while fingers crossed that my little slice of creativity would cut it in the high-stakes world of business birthday gifts. Day 1, postmark bombshell. I'm standing in the middle of my makeshift studio, a corner of the dining room I've cleared out, pushing the table against the wall. The morning light streaming in, kind of highlighting the chaos of my art supplies spread all over. Mommy, what's all this? Lily, my 6-year-old, parks herself right in the middle of the chaos, her eyes as round as the splattered paint drops on the floor. Mommy's got to make a birthday present, baby, I reply, rifling through old brushes with bristles stiffer than my back. For who? She picks up a brush, examining the crusty edges like a pro. For a lady Daddy works with, I explain, snatching the brush from her before it becomes a makeshift sword or fairy wand. Lily's forehead scrunches up in confusion. But why can't Daddy buy something? Lily, go watch your cartoons, will you? I need to think. I'm not in the mood to unpack the complexities of our bank account or my marriage to a kindergartner. Grumbling something under her breath, sounding too much like me for comfort, she trots off to the living room, leaving me to my quandary. The week grinds by. I'm pulling double shifts. Daytime mommy, nighttime Picasso. The canvas starts to fill, taking on a life of its own. Something abstract, something that feels kind of like the whirlwind that's my life lately. I don't hear a peep from Mark. No check-in calls, not even a text asking how it's going. Guess he's too wrapped up in his charts, deals, and whatever he does that's too important to ring his wife. Lily, on the other hand, is my tiny shadow, always creeping back to watch me paint. You're really good, Mommy, she says on what, day 4. You should draw stuff more. I smile because that's probably the best review I'll ever get. Think so, huh? Maybe I will. The night before the big reveal, the painting's finally staring back at me done. It's not just art, it's everything I haven't been able to say or do, all poured out onto canvas. I can't sleep that night, tossing and turning, thoughts swirling in my head. What if Clara hates it? What if Mark thinks I've wasted my time? What if? But the morning comes, clear and bright. The painting's wrapped up, no fancy paper, just brown parcel stuff, but neat with a nice bow from Lily's hair ribbons. Because why not? So there I was at the boss's wife's birthday bash, my arms wrapped tight around a package, the painting I hoped would be a hit. I slid through the crowd, eyes low, wishing I could blend into the wallpaper. Mark was there too, just flown in hot from his latest trip, looking every inch the man who had it all, except the picture-perfect trophy wife. His eye swept over the women, polished and perfect in their cocktail dresses, then landed on me like a ton of bricks. I saw that look on his face, like he just bit into a lemon. He looked me up and down and shook his head, just enough so only I'd notice. The room faded a bit, like someone turned down the volume on the party, and all I could hear was my heartbeat in my ears. Then his gaze zeroed in on the parcel, all wrapped up and nestled in my shaky grip. His eyes flashed, and oh boy, I knew that look. I saw the storm brewing before the first word even shot out. "What's that?" he spat, barely keeping a lid on it. I pulled the package closer, as if I could shield it, and me, from what was coming. "It's a gift, I started, but the words barely had a chance to hang in the air before his voice boomed. "A painting." "You're kidding, right?" It was loud enough to catch a few glances our way. I tried to shush him with my eyes, but he was past caring. "You actually think this is okay? To hand her a piece of amateur hour?" The whispers around us started like the start of a rain, soft, but getting stronger. "Mark, please, not here," I begged, my cheeks flaming up something fierce. "Did you lose your mind?" he roared, and the room didn't just pause, it froze. "You make us look like fools." By now, we were the main event. Eyes flicked to us, then away, then back again, like they were watching tennis. I shrank, wishing I could melt right into the floorboards. His face was a shade of red I'd only ever seen on traffic lights. "Great, just great, Grace," he vented, throwing his hands up. "You don't think, do you?" The heat in my face told me I was blushing, and not in a cute way. My hand shook, but I hugged the painting tighter. What else was there to hang on to? I took a breath, trying to remember why I thought this was a good idea. Now everyone's going to have a go at us, thanks to you and your dumb idea. He added, sharp as a knife, for anyone still pretending they weren't listening. My mouth opened, words ready to tumble out to defend, or maybe just to tell him to put a sock in it. But what was there to say with the whole room's eyes burning holes into us? Instead, I just stood there, the fool he called me, wishing the ground would do me a favor and swallow me whole. The laughter after Mark's outburst felt like daggers. Even with the room spinning, I caught the boss's eye. He was just watching, all quiet, with something like confusion on his face. His wife, Clara, had this half-concerned, half-intrigued frown that actually gave me a sliver of hope. Clara waved a hand, cutting through the noise. "Quiet down, everyone. Let's see what Grace has brought." I moved on autopilot, my hands still a bit jittery as they tore the paper from the canvas. The art kind of just spilled out into the room. All the colors and shapes I'd spent nights pouring myself into. Clara's eyebrows shot up. "Oh my," she said, and the room hushed like they were waiting for her to drop the hammer. But then she continued, "This is quite something, Grace." Mark was still fuming by my side. "Yeah, something, all right," he muttered. I ignored him and searched Clara's face for some sign. It's for you," I mumbled. "Happy birthday." She tilted her head, studying the painting like it was a puzzle. "It's bold. I like bold." "Told you, darling." She nudged her husband, pulling him into this. The boss was a tough guy to read, but he nodded. Don't see something like that every day. Mark tried to jump back in. "Oh, come on. You're saying you like this mess." And there it was, the snap in Clara's voice as she turned to him with a squint. "Mark, I'd watch it if I were you. Your wife has talent, and I won't have you embarrass her any further. It's unbecoming." The room fell into this tense kind of quiet, the kind where you could hear someone sneeze 3 houses down. "Look at the colors, the feeling in it," Clara was saying. "Now it's got life." Mark tried for a save. "Well, sure, if you like that sort of thing." But Clara cut him off. "I do. It's decided. This goes right in the foyer." I blinked. Was this actually happening? "You sure, babe?" The boss chimed in. "It's not exactly." Clara shot him a look, and he trailed off. Standard, right. "It's unique," she said, her arm shot out to me. A beacon in the high heels and overpriced suit. "See, thank you, Grace. This here's a real gift, folks. It's got soul." And just like that, the murmur started up again, but they had a different tune. People were nodding, some even looking at me with what felt like respect. Clara, still holding my painting like it was a treasure, turned her eyes on me again. "So, Grace," she said, drawing the room's focus, "ever thought about showing your work? Like in a gallery?" Mark let out a scoff. I heard it, but my eyes were glued to Clara. "Who'd want to see my stuff?" I asked. "Don't worry, Grace. I would. And I know people." Clara's voice was firm, her eyes sharp. Mark tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Clara. She's just dabbling." Clara quirked an eyebrow at him. "So she dabbles better than some pros I know. What's it to you?" I swallowed, feeling like I was teetering on the edge of something big. I don't know. I've never. What's to know? You jump in, I'll help." Clara's look said she wasn't asking. She was telling. A chuckle escaped my lips. Even to my own ears, it seemed a little frantic and uneasy. "Sure." Clara smiled. "All right. Then it's resolved." Then, like moths to a flame, murmurs flew about. Now, people who hardly paid attention to me were chatting about my job while hanging on my arm. It was like strolling into someone else's life, and it seemed unreal. Mark appeared out of nowhere with an almost scorching palm on my back. "You're not serious about this, are you?" His voice had that sharp edge that threatened to sever. Feeling the weight of the throng and the attraction of something new, I turned to face him. My voice was louder than it had been in years. "Yeah, I am," I said. That night was the first time he looked at me, actually looked at me. But what about us? What about us? I said it again. We've been over for a longer time than I want to admit. He was shaken by that. He took a step back. I thought we were fine. I looked him in the face. You thought wrong. I didn't mean to say those things, but they had to be uttered. Mark looked battered and ran a hand over his hair. What the heck? We simply terminated. I glanced down at the color splattered over my fingernails and the rings that no longer had their intended meaning. We broke up a while back. We're simply formally announcing it now. There was nothing he could say about that. His shoulders bowed as he walked away, and I watched. My shoulder was touched by Clara's hand. You okay, Han? I gave a nod. Yes, I am. Many thanks. She gave a wink. What are friends for, right? She paused and squeezed my shoulder. And you, Grace, she said. Your artwork is going to illuminate this community. Simply wait. My heart began to pound after that, but for a completely different set of reasons. Not only was there a conclusion, but also a start. Additionally, it was painted in the most striking hues I could think of. We'd be all right, Lily and myself. We would be ourselves. Unreservedly, uncompromisingly us.